we are currently living in a society where basically there is instant gratification. And I don't mean so much in terms of ego and fulfillment, but let's take the very basics. For a lot of people, when they need or want something nowadays, they can go online, they can type in a very specific search, and they have access to a huge amount of information, whether it's researching and learning in articles, whether, let's say, it's ordering something. You have multiple websites you can go to. You can type in the product you want or item that you need. You can see a variety of different brands. You can see reviews. You can see different prices. You know exactly when, well, relatively depending on the postal service, when you're going to get the item shipped to you. And so it feels like, I'm going to say, a degree of success. You had a question, you can find an answer, feels like you have an endpoint, and so there's a degree of satisfaction in that. And unfortunately, with horses, and certainly on any type of learning journey, whether it was in the horse world or not, people are not getting that same satisfaction. So can you go onto a search online and type in whatever your horse related question is? Yes, but there are so many variables in the person who is typing the question, in their understanding, their perception of what's happening. Maybe the question that they're asking really isn't, I'm going to say, the correct question for what is occurring or isn't occurring with their horse, but they don't recognize that. And I find a lot of the answers you get online take no recognition or have no recognition, or they don't educate the public in being able to give people a broader perspective of what may be occurring. And so instead, because our society tends to be conditioned to, here's the only thing that I want to know or research about or learn about, and I just want an answer that only addresses that, a lot of folks are losing perspective or never learning perspective as far as the multiple contributors in their own behaviors, actions, understanding, maybe lack of understanding of their own thoughts and perception of what's happening with the horse, maybe of the basics of equine behavior and communication. And so the questions they are asking, or the questions they are seeking information for or answers for, they're not feeling satisfied. They're not feeling like the answers are helping them on their journey. So you have this lack of understanding in those who are asking questions. You have a lack of quality answers, or I'm going to say non-respectful answers, meaning people are like, just do this and that with your horse and then he'll figure out blah, 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 or just keep repeating, or horses just do that, or this is how you fix X, Y, and Z, without acknowledging if there's a basic quality education, like how does the horse feel about spatial pressure? How do they feel about physical pressure? Is the human aware of the timing of when they're communicating? How much energy do they use? Do they offer a release? Like, there's so many different variables that go into the horse learning that I feel like this is something that is just majorly overlooked, and it leaves a lot of good intentioned, we'll say, horse students and horse owners feeling like they are not having success because their questions aren't being answered. And, you know, I think this comes back to my conversation that I was talking to this person who was studying neuroscience and they were talking about how much effort it takes to be mentally present, to be aware of others, whether it be, and this wasn't a horse person, but whether it's of other people or in this case horses or anything else, and to be adaptable in the present, to be adaptable in real time when you are acknowledging another being's communication, that maybe whatever your initial intention was has to change. And that is something that I find mixed in with everything I've just talked about in the horse world. There's often taught a rigidity of, this is what I want to work on, this is what my horse needs to comply on, and unless we accomplish this original task, it was a failure. And we have this very black and white perception of if something was good or bad or right or wrong, rather than embracing that learning, both in our own education and the horse as they're learning and progressing, is not going to be black and white. There's not going to be these clear endpoints of arrival. There's always going to be opportunities for refinement. And as a client of mine once said, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And that the more you refine things, the more you become aware of how much more there is that can be refined and improved in the equine interaction and quality of communication and, you know, all these different things. And to me, that's exciting. But I think if we go back to the initial, I have a question, I want to answer it, I want the solution, and I want to move on, if that is the mindset of the person who's working with the horse, they're forever going to feel, I'm going to say, frustrated and overwhelmed because they are lacking the capacity to recognize that this is not just about one being, because we're interacting with the horse, but two, that there is very little questioning that perhaps their perception of what is happening or why things are happening or why the horse is responding in a certain way may not be accurate. And those false assumptions lead to so much frustration, and I see so many aggressive, quote, training tactics that are imposed upon horses because it comes back to a lack of human understanding. So maybe think about that. If there's areas where you've shied away from or avoided or struggled with, notice how often do you see value in slowing down and becoming aware of your thoughts and your intentions and your behaviors? Or does that seem like the annoying stuff, the fluff stuff, you don't have time for it, and you're trying to kind of ignore all of that aspect and yet still expect certain responses in your horse without you offering perhaps a supportive specific communication that horse might need to be successful?